Hey, what's going on YouTube? So wanted to do my college football playoff prediction video for week 7. Last week I believe I had Ohio State, Baylor, Clemson, and Alabama. Excuse me. So not too big a shakeup inside the top 10 this week, which means not too big a shakeup inside my college football playoff. To be honest, college football playoff's been getting. I think the race has been getting a little bit more steady as the top 10 really hasn't moved around that much. But this week it's probably all going to change. There's a lot of games inside the top 10. There's Florida, LSU, Alabama, A&M, Michigan, Michigan State. And there are a few other games that could affect the top 10 as well. Memphis, Ole Miss, Stanford, UCLA are the first games that come to mind. Utah and Arizona State as well. So, sorry guys, a little bit sick. But go ahead and start with my college football playoff for this week. So my 4 outside, like I said, last week it was Ohio State, Baylor, Clemson, Alabama. But like I said, anyway, 4 outside, TCU, Texas A&M, Florida, and Alabama. So, I had Michigan State inside my college football playoff for a couple of weeks. They've been kind of falling off a little bit. No one expected Michigan to be this good. There's a real and legit chance that Michigan wins that game this weekend. I honestly think that Michigan is favored. I think the spread right now is Michigan by 7.5. It's going to be awful hard for Michigan State to go into Ann Arbor, go into the Big House, and actually beat Michigan with how good they're doing right now. Michigan State's not been looking very good. I do trust Connor Cook. I kind of trust that defense, but I don't know if they're going to be on the same page enough to pull away from Michigan with how good that defense is and how just in sync that team's been looking. Anyway, like I said, Alabama was in my college football playoff last week. It's not so much them that got knocked out as other teams that look better than them. So, yeah, that's the story there. I still think that Alabama is one of the favorites for the SEC West and SEC title as a whole right now just because Georgia's been knocked off in the SEC East. Florida lost Will Greer, so I think they're going to end up getting pushed back. I think they are still a favorite, but to be honest, at this point, I think it's a race between Florida and, if they can get it together, Tennessee. I think Tennessee kind of got over that hump last week. See if they can finally start stringing together some big games. I think the SEC East champion will be a 2 or 3 loss team. So inside the SEC. So like I said, anyway, move on to my college football playoff. 4th seed, I've got LSU. 3rd, Clemson. 2, Baylor, and then 1, Ohio State. So, like I said, not too big a shakeup. I do have LSU in this week. Now, this game against Florida this weekend is going to be very telling for them. I think the game of the year for LSU is definitely going to be the game against Alabama, just because I think Alabama is going to be the most well-prepared team for LSU. To be honest, I don't think that really any other team in the SEC West is prepared enough to stop Leonard Fournette. Florida is the best defense that Leonard Fournette will have seen so far this season. I think that Auburn was a good defense, but nowhere near as good as Florida. Now, since Florida loses Will Greer, that's one of the biggest reasons why LSU is on this list. I firmly think they will beat Florida now, which will insert them into the SEC, or not just in the SEC title favorite, but will also insert them firmly into the college football playoff. Last week proved a little bit to me that there's a team outside of Leonard Fournette. Travon Durrell played pretty good. Brandon Harris made a few throws that he had to make. I don't know if that'll last, but it was a good sign that they were able to do that against a decent team. So Clemson just keeps looking better and better, honestly. I was a little worried about that, or after that opening game against Louisville. They didn't look very good. Deshaun Watson didn't look very good. But for me, Deshaun Watson, like I've been saying every week, as long as Clemson's winning, he's going to be in the Heisman race. He's going to be a Heisman favorite. So, he's been playing a little bit better. Basically, he's been doing what he has to do to keep that team competitive, keep that team winning. The defense has been looking very good. They just look like they're clicking on all cylinders right now. So, move on to Baylor. Baylor is the team that's a lot of people's number 1 team in the country right now. They've looked the best, obviously, but they really haven't played anyone good, maybe outside of Texas Tech. So, I do think this is going to be a different test for them this weekend against West Virginia. We'll show a lot how they fare against a decent defense like West Virginia has. West Virginia is by far the best defense that Baylor has played so far. So, like I said, will be a very telling weekend to see how Seth Russell and that offense fare against a good West Virginia defense. So now, actually, strike that. It's not as good as it used to be without Carl Joseph, but like I said, still best defense they've faced so far. So move on to number 1, Ohio State. So Ohio State's still number 1 in my book. Had a little bit of a scare at first against Maryland last week, but really, what team have they not played closely with so far this year? Ended up pulling away in the end. It was good to see that offense could get something going. I think that Ohio State. I think this is Ohio State's biggest tough test, or biggest test, toughest test, whatever. This week against Penn State. Penn State's been looking good. They've won 5 straight. Christian Hackenberg's been looking better. That entire team's been looking better since that tough loss to Temple in the first week. Now, Ohio State, for them, it's just going to be, if they do let Penn State stick around, then I think Christian Hackenberg will be able to pull off some late-game heroics. But for Ohio State, it's making sure they go into the fourth quarter with at least like a 14-point lead. I think if they can do that, then they'll be able to win this weekend and stay as the number 1 team in the country. I think that Ohio State will be fine until the Michigan game. I think the Michigan State game's been getting overlooked a little bit just because of how good Michigan's been doing, but I still think that's going to be a big game that decides the Big Ten. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my college football playoff predictions for Week 7. Coming back later this week with my Heisman top 5 for this week. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.